Welcome, Don. I wanted to just tackle you a little bit on this title, multiply and divide. It's definitely one of those hard to guess topics. You want to begin by telling us all about it?
Well, sure. I'm going to give a very obvious clue. The first obvious clue is found in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 28. And it says, just after God had made Adam and Eve, God said to them, the verse says, and God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it. So right away, I think you can guess what multiply is. Another supporting verse, of course, is one we have used on this program more than once before, and it's in Psalm 127, verse 3, where it says, lo, children are an heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. So that's the multiply part of things. Well, the divide is going to be a little surprising to a few of us here tonight. Well, let me just say it. Having children, that very thing that we just talked about, the multiplying, can also be a source of dividing. It can be a source of division in marriages. So and in fact can even lead to divorce. So we're talking about multiplying, having children, but also those children serving to be a source of division. So as we go along, we'll see how we're talking about that.
Well, you're right there. That is a surprise. The multiply part was very clear, but wow, that's a different. So it also sounds a bit contradictory, though. How can it be true, what you're saying?
Well, yes, it is contradictory. You see, the arrival of a child, I think most people look forward to having children. I think it's something God put in us that we kind of want to see our offspring. So it can be a joyous occasion, but it can also cause conflict in even the most rock-solid relationships. And while many couples consider having children as a natural progression in their relationship, the reality is that being a parent is challenging. And for those of us on here who are parents, we know that there can be challenges with having children. It can put a significant amount of stress on a marriage, especially when the children are very young. Some studies have shown that couples are less romantic with each other after becoming parents. Some of these studies show that couples in childless marriages tend to be happier, at least for a part of the time. In a study conducted by Brian D. Moss from the University of Miami, he did a study with couples who were married for 8 to 10 years, and approximately 90% said they felt less happy in their relationship after becoming parents. 60% says they were less confident about being able to work through their problems with their partners. Many of them reported lower levels of dedication to making their marriages work in the long term. And perhaps this kind of explains why so many marriages may last 12 years and then the 13th year bug sets in. Many marriages fail around about 12, 13 years. So this could be a part of it, you get to that stage, and it's rather frightening to think that the cause of that can be the presence of children. So as I said, many reported lower levels of dedication to making their relationships work in the long term. So even though they may stick it out, they may not have that dedication to it.
Very clear, Don. And when you think about it, it makes sense that raising children would have an effect on the marriage after all. So what are some of the ways this can happen?
Okay, I am going to list about 6, and there may be other things. I'm going to list about 6 different ways in which having children affect relationships, marriage relationships. And I want to talk about each one a little, but I'm going to list them first, and then I come back and talk about each one. Number one, having children is going to cause changes in your sex life as a married couple. Number two, you're going to find exhaustion and lack of self-care chipping in when you have children, either on one parent's part, usually the mother, but sometimes both parents. Then as children begin to grow, you have difference in parenting styles that may begin to cause conflicts. And then you find a difficulty now in balancing the work life and the home life because children are there. Then you have also mismatched expectations and sometimes problems with money and debt. So the first one, changing your sex life. I guess it doesn't take rocket science to find out why sex life will change when you have children, because naturally, many times there's a child, and sometimes more than one, present, perhaps in the room at first with both parents, or even in the same house. Just the presence of somebody else is going to impact how easily you can relate to each other sexually. But it all, because of the demands that rearing a child puts on one or both parents, sometimes even the inclinations may change. And so you find that thing which is supposed to bind you together very close sometimes begins to wane and diminish, and you find that the relationship follows suit. It's not so savory anymore. There's no real fun, there's no real excitement, because as we said in one of our earlier meetings, God gave that to us because it makes for healthier individuals. It produces endorphins, which is the feel-good hormone in the body. And so if you're not having that happening, you're not going to be feeling so good about yourself anymore. And you find the breakdown starting to take place. Then, of course, the exhaustion and lack of self-care is pretty obvious. Children haven't learned to go to sleep at 7 p.m. and wake up at 7 a.m. They wake up in the middle of the night. They start crying in the middle of the night. Mommy can't get to sleep. She has to breastfeed. She has to do this. She has to do that. And because there's noise in the house, maybe daddy can't get to sleep as he should either. So people become more exhausted. Both parents can become more exhausted. Of course, usually these babies decide to sleep in the days when you have to do all the other things. But exhaustion sets in, and it's kind of hard sometimes to manage that. And then difference in parenting styles. One parent may think that you should be a strong disciplinarian. Many times, many mothers, I don't know about everywhere, but I know in Jamaica, many mothers like to tell the children, I'm going to tell your daddy when he comes, because daddy is supposed to be the disciplinarian and he's supposed to spank the child for being rude. Some people believe in telling the child what to do and they must obey. Others believe in reasoning with them. And also regular meal times versus irregular meal times, time for family time for family worship, different expectations. And because as varied as we are, there are so many ways in which we can have different expectations. And because a child is now in the mix, it affects the way we are able to deal with these things. And you find that simple things like that create conflicts because, for one of the expectations that you might have is that, because the mother just had a child, she might think, daddy should know that I can't do all the things I usually do, so he should chip in. But the two of them don't talk about it. And daddy doesn't reason it out, maybe, that mommy can't do this now, so I need to step in. Mommy doesn't say, daddy, I expect you to do that now. So they both sit down and things start falling apart and nobody's communicating. So you see where the breakdown lies right there. And then, of course, there's the additional problem with money and debt. Having children will require some more spending. and managing this money. Sometimes one parent can't work, the mother usually can't work for a while because of having a child, and there may be a loss of income and an accumulation of debt, trying to make the place more accommodating for the child, all kinds of different things. So these are some of the ways in which having children can affect a marriage. As I said, the last one being problems with money and debt, and that one can stretch out throughout the relationship.
So, Don, very clear what you're sharing. And I'm a bit aghast because I think underlying all that, you're saying there's a potential that a marriage can be ruined through having children.
Unfortunately, in some cases, the answer is yes. I can't add to
Wow.
that.
So, but why though? What are some of the reasons behind that?
Well, I'm going to share a couple of pictures. Perhaps this might help to illustrate the point a little bit better. So let me share a couple of pictures here.
Yep.
Okay, that's a picture of a family, right? What about this one? That's also a picture of a family. And this one. Now I'd like everybody to look at these three pictures. These are pictures of a family. Now, this may be a little hard, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Can anybody tell me which configuration of the families in each of those three pictures depicts how a family should relate best? Look at number one. Look at number two. And look at number three. Any ideas?
Could it be number one?
That one. Okay.
I prefer number three.
You prefer number three. All right. Marlene.
Hi, thank you. Good night, everyone. I would say number three. And I say number three because number three, the couple, that's the father and the mother, they are together, and each of them has a child in their arms, and the two children are also beside each other. And so the parents, they still have that contact, while the siblings also have that contact, and each of them has the contact with a parent.
Excellent. Excellent. That's exactly right. Now, these two top ones depict how many families configure themselves, not just to take a picture, but in life. Many times when children come about, they divide the parents. They get between the parents. It's not an intentional evil. It's not that they're thinking, I'm going to do this. But sometimes as a parents, in caring for the children, you tend to focus on the children so much that your partner gets pushed further away. So number one and number two show that kind of configuration. Looks loving and all that in number one here. They're hugging each other and they're close to each other, but the children are in between. And this is, you asked me the question, why? Why is it that having kids can ruin a marriage? This is one of the main reasons, because parents don't realize, they just do it because they're being good parents, they're caring for their children, but they don't realize that they're allowing the children to get in between and to create a wedge. By the time the kids are old enough to leave them, they're so far apart that they just keep going, many of them. You've heard, I'm sure, of marriages that ended in divorce after the kids were grown and gone out of the house. They decided, we're going to stick together for the children's sake. So they stuck together even though they were far apart for the children's sake. And then when the children were gone, there was nothing left for them to stay together. So they parted. You know, some are not so patient to wait till the children are grown. Some of them part earlier. And unfortunately, many do not even realize what is the reason why they're drifting apart. And that's why, for me, this division that can be caused by having children is something that we have to pay attention to and address. Part of the problem, of course, is that, well, some of those things I mentioned pose a part of the problem, all because the children are in the picture. Part of the problem is that you're tired, you have so much less time to spend with friends, with family, with your partner. Everything is on the baby, and the partner is away. It's a lot harder to go out together to enjoy the things. I remember in my own marriage here, there were many years when I don't know if it's years, but there were many times when we wished that we could have gone out together more, but we couldn't leave the children. And so we had to find ways to craft our relationship and our togetherness around having the children. I don't believe in putting the children aside. I don't believe in sending them out to others to look after for any extended periods of time while you go and have fun and bond. I believe we ought to find ways, and that's a part of what I'd like us to discuss a little later on. I might say one or two things on it, but I don't want to say too much because I'm sure some of us have ideas. So if you have a partner and you have children, the partner may start feeling left out, and you may resent what you see as a lack of support. You may see the partner backing away, and you feel that you're not getting the support from your partner. But the thing that is causing it may be because of other aspects that we're not addressing. And so we begin to turn the attack on our partner, our husband, or our wife. I don't know if that answered you enough for you.
No, very, very nicely done. And in fact, it leads me to another important question, and possibly the most important question so far, because I'm very keen to know, and I'm sure others on the call are very keen to know, do you have any suggestions to help prevent this breakdown? Or should I say potential breakdown?
Yes. I have one or two suggestions. And as I said, I would really like to hear some from the audience as well. So I'm going to make one very obvious one: communication. We almost every week we talk about that because it is such a key, and it is such a thing. It is something that is so very neglected these days. Communication, as I said last week, is not talking so that somebody can hear what you say. Communication is making sure that the message that you want to be received is received. And it involves active listening. Take time to listen. As I said last week, we got 2 ears from God and 1 mouth, which means we listen twice as much as we speak. And if we did more of that, we'd probably understand each other a little better. But the problem is that when we're having issues, what happens? We want to talk more because you're failing to understand me. You're not understanding what I'm saying, so I talk some more. And you still don't understand me, so I talk some more. What I need to do is to listen to you. Okay, so what do you understand from what I said? And then I listen. Okay, I see. Now I understand why you're responding that way. Okay, so let me try to explain it a little better, just tell you what I was trying to say. And sometimes just by doing that, you can dissolve things. You can understand each other better. So take time to listen. Make time for each other when you can. It's not always easy, especially when you have young children. But like in some of those pictures we looked at, the children are in the mix. You can be having time with each other. The children can be involved. Do little things, that whatever you can, to make each other feel cared for and included. You've got to make a conscious effort. I know having a baby who keeps you up at night really makes it hard to even think to do something special for your husband or your wife. But is it important enough? And if it is, we should think about it consciously and make this effort. You see, because if we don't think about this happening, we may not realize that we need to do anything about it. So this meeting and our meetings week to week is to help us to think about some of the things that are there before us, obvious, but maybe we never put them into active thought. So I want us to put it into active thought. No matter how close you were to each other before the baby was born, your partner can't read your mind. Both of your lives are changing, and you have to talk about it. You and your partner need to tell each other what you want, what's bothering you, if you're resentful, angry, or upset. You know, just seeing somebody upset. Maybe you did something, maybe you did, but you don't realize how it impacted your wife or your husband. And so you just look around and your partner, wife or husband, seems upset. And you're wondering what it is, and you might start bothering her. What's wrong? What did I do? You know, why are you upset? And that might make her more upset. She doesn't want to talk about it now. Remember those Venusian women? She doesn't want to talk about it. She doesn't want you to bother her or ask her about it. Sometimes you just have to go back to Mars until she figures it out and is ready to talk to you. But we've got to find ways to work around this. Be honest about what you need. Talk. Maybe you just need a hug. Say, I need a hug. That's not so hard. You need a kiss? Say, I need a kiss. You haven't kissed me in 2 days. You haven't hugged me in a week. I'm feeling left out. Just be open, be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to say it. That's what we have to do. We have to share with each other because we can't read each other's mind. It's important that we talk about how we want to bring up our children too. Because two people from two different backgrounds may have different ideas about raising children. And it's important to talk about it. It's important to see where the different opinions are. If possible, try to bring them together into one place, some kind of agreement. You may find you don't agree on basic matters like discipline and attitudes. You might not agree on that. You've got to discuss it and come to some decision. How do we discipline our children? Who disciplines when? And all kinds of things. It really takes out the talking, and it's ongoing. It's not just, okay, we're going to go do this at prenuptials and then we know everything and it's going to be happily ever after. No. Today, something didn't quite go right. We talk about it. Yesterday, I noticed so-and-so, and I didn't quite understand what was happening. So can you help me understand it? And we talk about it. Find a way of dealing with issues without disagreeing in front of your child. These are some of the things I think, because you see, it's when I talk about disagreeing in front of your child, this is one of the things that also creates a great rift. Because when somebody else gets in the mix, in this case your child, seeing it, hearing you say certain things, it's harder for you to back down from what you were saying. It's harder for you to change your position. Whereas if you and your wife or husband talk about it alone, it's easier to make adjustments. And quite aside from the fact that the child may just be very hurt and upset seeing mommy and daddy at each other. So I think those are they. But Wayne, I'd like to really be able to hear. So when you get into your question and answer session, we'll probably hear from others. I just want to say this though, as an interesting aside, that a study shows that childless couples have an increased risk of leaving each other up to 12 years after they probably start trying to have children and can't. You know, you have these couples. So there's an increased risk of leaving each other when children don't come into the mix. So children in the mix helps to keep the marriages together better. So I know it sounds a little contradictory going from both sides here, but it's still a blessing from the Lord for us to have children. And what we have to do is to learn how to deal with the possible conflicts that children throw in the mix. And at the end of it, I think we are greatly blessed by having children. So that's it from me.
Very good. Thank you. And so, how are we looking, Ingrid? Is it time for our question and answer with our guests?
I'm sure we can go right into that right now. And here's Ted. His hands up. Go ahead, Ted.
Thank you. Well, has been quite an interesting topic, and it's the reality of what happens in life. But of all the points you put forward, Don, I think communication underscores, if not overscores, the point in marriage issues, because the issues from different marriages are I think an interesting diversification. I say that because I myself have been exposed to seeing quite a bit of diverse problems and issues develop in marriage. And let me tell you, I have seen one particular situation where you could almost say that the child became the victim. Let me tell you why. Because the the wife began to experience some drawbacks because of her of attitudes and different ways of approaching matters on the part of her husband. And instead of talking about it, she uses the child as a sticking plaster to spend more time with the child and ignore the husband because of those feelings. And instead of talking about it, instead of hitting the nail on the head, you know what happens? The husband became so isolated that it ends up in an extramarital relationship. So that underscores the importance of communication and talking about problems and issues. Thanks.
Anybody else with any comments or questions for the moderators? For the presenters, rather. Wayne, go ahead.
Thank you, Ingrid. I've been thinking about this session quite a bit as we've been going through and listening, and realised that it's really geared for people who are thinking about getting married, people who are just married, people who've just had children, and also people during and towards the end of their child rearing experience. And so it really covers a broad cross section because of a particular Bible verse that I've been studying lately, and it's in Proverbs 29, verse 18, which says, "Where there's no vision, the people perish, but happy is he who keeps the law." So why do we get married, or is marriage a fleeting thing, or do we get married for the long term? And as we've discussed in previous sessions, it's long term. And we know of people who have been married for, a very long time, 60, 70 years in some cases. I met a couple who were, I think they were celebrating their 70th wedding anniversary. Quite amazing. And so we think about the child rearing experience is not the majority of the time. It's temporary. Depending on how long we wait to have children, there's that little period of time. And then when the children are old enough, even if they're still in the house, they can be old enough to maintain themselves. And it's a nice part of family extension to have one or two there still or whatever. But then it's time for the parents again. And when Don put those three pictures up earlier, I didn't concentrate on the question so much as the images. So yes, I get why number 3 was the correct image for the question. But the reason I like number 1 is here that mum and dad close to the kids doing things together, and so there's a new tie that binds. Before the kids, it's a direct tie, but now we've got a child and then another and perhaps another. So there's this extra tie that binds. I mean, I'm just seeing this for the first time. It's, my own children are in their 30s, and so it's a lot of hindsight going on here with experience. But and then we know again that's temporary, and even through the stages of child rearing, there are different stages. If we're talking about the nights, sleepless nights, well, that's temporary. And then, teaching them certain things, and they then go off to school and they have the challenges at school. And these days, social stuff and, not around when my kids were little, but all of these stages, different stages in the marriage. So long as we've got a long-term vision of the marriage, these things don't need to have a negative effect, just a positive effect, along with that number 1 thing, as Don underscored and Ted overscored, was communication, of course. So anyway, I could go on with this quite a bit, I think, but that's just my thoughts and how grateful I am for this session, because it's helped me quite a bit, even this evening. So thanks for that.
All right, interesting. Thank you for sharing. And the room is open, the floor is open for anyone who has a comment, have a question, have a concern about this topic. Ted.
All right, let me come in on this. And again, this underscores the matter of communication. But I'd like to phrase this one as a question, because I have known of at least one relationship, many, but this particular one I'd like to single out, that it speaks to a matter of how relationships should be conducted, and I think in a very predominant way. But here's the point. A relation down the road in a relationship, it the going to the movie, and these were like Christian people getting interested. The husband knew that his wife liked going to the movie, and it caused quite a bit of a stir, and some amount of reconsideration. So here's the question that I'd like to ask, and Marlene, don't keep quiet on this one. Should couples strive to have a very good friendship, very good, deep enough friendship before marriage is gone into? Because I am always willing, and I'll be very willing to divulge some of the innermost secrets and likings to my partner, so that both of us can know and understand. So should friendship strive to be a reality before marriage and deep relationship is gone into? Question.
Yes, I'll chime in because as you spoke, Craig, about the friendship, being foundation, I my mind just went right back to somebody I know actually, but she was actually speaking on social media, and she said that she could say just what she would say to her husband is anything that she would say to her girlfriend. She says they talk about just about anything. She said he's first my friend, and I know that they have an excellent relationship. And she also said that he would say anything to her, just like he would say to her friend. And she actually gave an example. She said, like, if she was even walking and she saw this girl or this man for that matter that looks good, she would even look and say, that girl that look good in. And, or she would say, boy, that man they look good in. And she would say this to her husband because she feels that he is her friend. And over the years, they have never had any problem with being like that. In fact, the relationship has only become, tighter and tighter. They just celebrated, I think it was 21 years of marriage, and of course they are over the moon, in terms of their relationship. And so I really believe, I'm saying all of that to say that I really believe that, it is very, very important for couples to be friends first and foremost. I mean, if you're just going to be wife and husband and you're not friends, then it's really just like a kind of a business arrangement. And really, that does not lend for what a true marriage should be, which is really built on love and connection and commitment and all of those good things that really keeps it going spicy and, after many, many years. So that's my take on it, Ted. I hope I did answer your respond to your question accordingly.
Anybody else coming in on that question?
Well, I think Marlene's answer is what I would concur with too. And I think we've said it on here before, one of our earlier meetings, that you should be friends first. You get married to your friend. You should get married to your best friend, as long as it's not the same sex. That person, the friendship will last because you're friends, and therefore you can share, you can laugh together, you can joke together, you can do all kinds of things because you're friends. Too many people marry for other reasons and then find that this person is not really enough like me, so we don't have enough in common, so we're not good friends. And that's yeah. So I agree with with Marlene's response there, Ted. I think that goes without saying. And if you're married to somebody already and the person wasn't your best friend when you got married, then do whatever you can to make this person your best friend. Share your secrets with the person, share jokes, do all kinds of things. You try to make this person become your best friend, and then the marriage will last.
The idea of a friend, a very good friend, is someone who you feel free with, you feel comfortable with, and that person is not going to be feeling insecure, in your presence, because actually your good friend is somebody who you can be very open with and you can be vulnerable with, and vice versa. I mean, they can be vulnerable and open with you as well. So it becomes a little, and I quite understand what you're saying. So if you are really not that good, really good friends, and the persons have the insecurities, and you're married to them already, yes, you have to be, acknowledge that fact, and of course, be careful. But it would have been even better if you were good friends before you got married, or if you can get to that place where you are very good friends. I mean, you can have a friendship and the friendship still grows. If there are insecurities, it is reason for persons to work on that. And it is not necessarily for you, the other partner, to work on their insecurity. They have a responsibility to recognize that these are insecurities that I have, and to also seek help and to work on those insecurities, because you can't forever be covering up someone else's insecurity or insecurities. So I think we all have that responsibility to, yes, respect the other person, but we also have the responsibility to ourselves to address our own insecurities.
All right. Like that response. Thank you so much. Don, go ahead.
I agree with Marlene to a large extent, but I want to add another perspective to it, because there are times when, even though this person is your good friend, well, because this person is your good friend, you do want not to hurt the person. And if you know something is likely to cause hurt to the person, and so you withhold it from the person because you don't want to cause hurt. And this of course depends a lot on what the thing is, how important it is, and so on. So it's not just a general thing here. But I think it's okay sometimes to shield your friend from hurt. Now, there's a difference between that and being deceptive about something. So I'm not saying tell the person lies, but if you don't have to state something that you think might cause hurt, then don't state it. However, what Marlene said here is important because how long are you going to continue hiding this from the person? There may be a period of time in which you don't because you don't want to hurt, but you've got to find a way to gradually work it around to remove the insecurities. If a person is insecure where you're concerned, why? Why does this person feel insecure about me? Is it that he or she doesn't think that I love him enough or I care enough? And so what can I do to remove that? What kind of assurances can I give? And because you really want to be able to share your deepest inner self with this person, that's where, when you do that, you don't need to confide in anybody outside because your best friend is here in your home. You can share anything. That's where you want to get. It may not happen at the start, it may not happen in the first year or 2 or 10 or 12, whatever, however long it takes. But you would make conscious effort now to get to the point where you know that you can share your inner self with your partner and they will understand and they will not be hurt. So you don't have to shield or hide anything from the person anymore. That's what you want to get to.
Awesome, awesome. I think we're learning so much from each other, I'm just gonna make a little note here. I'm gonna share with you guys. My brother sent me you all know Andre be kind of butting on us one night while I was in Jamaica and listening to the program, and he sent me a video now with him at a pajama party with all these ladies. Dancehall Queen Carlene. What's that girl name? She's a minister. She was a beauty queen. It was something that was so interesting to me because he said he was the only male in the group and he's a bachelor, he's not married. And there is these ladies in a pajama party with him, and the discussion went to me pretty much what we are discussing now is something. What I really want to say is that look at what Andre's comment was when he listened in for just about 2 minutes in on our program. He said we should take this further. We should even, this can be a TV program. This can be something educational. So this program is really interesting, and we are helping each other by listening to each other's views on each of these topics. And so I'm just opening up the floor again to let everyone and anyone on the program know that they are free to make their comments, ask their questions, give views on whatever. Although we are past our time, um, still give you a minute or two to say something if you wish. You're free. And Brother Ted has his hand up. Go ahead, Ted.
We have to take time out. And I agree with you, Don. I agree with you. It's not a matter of deliberately withholding things from your wife or husband. But because I personally feel, and I believe this is a feeling that you can generalize, that if you have a partner and you really love and care about that person, there are some things that, for example, you have to sort of play it down. If for example, the establishment of the friendship between um, both of you has reached a place where there's great understanding, there's quite a bit, but the understanding might run along the line where you know the things that will affect your wife or husband, or they may not feel very comfortable about. So it's not a matter that you're hiding, it is a matter that you must withhold some things from the other person knowing because of how that person might feel about it. For example, in in my relationship or in my own mind, I might like, sometimes um snooping into like pornographic things. It's not that I really like it. I mean, but there are probably things that I might like to garner from from looking at them that might very well help my relationship in the bedroom. And so if I know that my partner doesn't feel I might not feel very comfortable about that. I can do that off the air, and we still have a good relationship. And I don't want to share that with her because I mean I know how she might become uncomfortable about us participating in snooping into things like those. So I agree with you, Don. It's not really everything that you can come too open with, you know. But we can generalize, eh? Thanks.
All right, very interesting comments. Thank you, everyone.